fucking nose, saggy son of a bitch could ever say. I say that because if Ric Flair's opening his mouth, I feel like he's lying. He's kind of like Dusty Rhodes, baby. Let's go to the P-Win, baby. If Dusty's talking to you, he's lying. That's the way I feel. That's the view of one man. That's one man's opinion. Anyway, Flair goes over to England, I guess, or somewhere, and he's doing an interview, and one of the interviewers spoke to him about something, about talking out of school or some kayfabe fact or something, and he got really upset that shouldn't be used by the fans. That shouldn't be used by the news media. You shouldn't say these things. Has he been living in a fucking cave for the last 20 years? This is the electronic age. It's the age of cell phones that you can take a picture with and email it right away to somebody. It's the age of the internet. It's the electronic information age. Everyone knows everything about this business, Rick. Don't you understand? You yourself, you put your own 130-pound bag of bones son on television. He looked like a sack of shit. You put him on television. Don't you think that smartened up the whole world? Don't you think that was something you probably shouldn't have done? Don't you think you should have probably kayfabed that? Listen, son, stay in the back. You're not ready to go out here yet. But you did it. But now when some reporter or someone like you, Rob, asks me some revealing inside information, I'm supposed to get really pissed off at you now and say, this is all wrong, you shouldn't be doing this, and this is the things we need to protect. Listen, you lost your protection a long time ago. Woo!
So you obviously you think it's okay for fans to use those terms, so.
I have no problem with it because the promoters themselves, Vince McMahon himself went to the state legislature and let the state of New Jersey know that everything we do is theatrical. That we're like a traveling theatrical play. Well, if the promoter can go do that, or if a promoter books a match, here's what I say. The wrestlers don't smarten anybody up. The promoters do. The promoter books a match. He books a match with the two worst dog shit people in the locker room that have the worst matches, smartens up everyone because they can't even wrestle. They don't even know anything. But yet when I have to go out there with somebody, or say Ric Flair goes out with somebody, then we're supposed to do a match that makes the people believe now because these people just made everybody not believe. So the promoters did it and they're booking. Then back to Flair. He goes out, he does the same match every night for 25 years. He flips over the top, he runs down, he climbs up, they slam him off every match, every night. And I said this 5 years ago. And now he picks on Bret Hart. He said Bret Hart was one-dimensional, Bret Hart didn't draw. And then I see an interview where Bret says the same thing, Flair does the same match every night. And then not so long ago I saw where Arn Anderson's put a book out, and Ole's the booker and a pretty good wrestler from Minnesota and down in the Carolinas and drew very well and was the booker down there. And he said Flair had the same match every night. Flair couldn't wrestle, had the same match every night. And then Jerry Lawler says the same thing. I saw an interview with Lawler that he had done with the Pro Wrestling Torch about 5 or 6 years ago, and he said the same thing. He said Ric Flair came to Memphis and almost killed the territory, almost killed the town because he did those same goofy bumps that he'd been doing on cable TV. But Arn Anderson says in his book, in the statement, apparently he said, the only reason Ric Flair got the World's Championship the first time was because he wanted him to have it. Ole wanted him to have the World's Championship, and they said, why? He said, because that'll get him out of the territory. He'll be somewhere else where he can't ruin this place for us. So there's your Ric Flair for you. Woo! Where are we partying tonight, Arn? Woo!
Speaking of that, my next question goes right into that. You wrote on your website that if Arn Anderson didn't party so much with Ric Flair, that he wouldn't have needed rehab. Was that said to get heat, or were you serious?
I was pretty serious about that. I feel like that Arn fell in with Flair back in the old Southeastern wrestling days down in Pensacola and Mobile. They brought Flair in right after Arn started. And they assigned Arn as a young guy. Arn and Pee Wee Anderson. Pee Wee Anderson's not around anymore. Arn and Pee Wee had the car, and they were young kids, and they said, Ric Flair's coming in for a week. We'd like for you to drive him to the towns because they furnished the transportation for the world's champion. So that's how Arn and Flair and Pee Wee Anderson got together. And after that week, within another 2 weeks or so, or shortly after that, Arn and Pee Wee both left. They went to the Carolinas, and then Arn he was Marty Lundy there. He became one of the Anderson younger brothers. And and that's the story with him. But for all these years, he's been friends with Flair. Nothing wrong with being friends with somebody. The only problem I have is that everyone knocked Beefcake. Oh, if it wasn't for Hogan, Beefcake wouldn't be there. If it wasn't for Hogan, Beefcake would be this. Beefcake wouldn't. Well, if it wasn't for Ric Flair, Arn Anderson would never be Arn Anderson. So you see, when you make a statement like that this guy's okay because he's got his head so far up this guy's ass, but that's okay. But this guy's not okay because he's a childhood friend with someone, and they grew up since they were 4 years old together, and they did everything together for their whole life. But now this guy's a bad guy. So I still think I would hope that Ric Flair would, all your money, Rick. I would hope you paid for Arn's rehab. I hope you didn't make the poor guy pay for it himself. But for a guy to get into rehab, if it helped him, fine. That's good. It's good for Arn. I've never had any issues with him. But he was. Everybody's got a beefcake. Scott Hall is Kevin Nash's beefcake. Hunter Hearst Helmsley Hunter was Sean's beefcake, and gosh, the list goes on and on of guys who have beefcakes. So let's don't knock beefcake. You know what beefcake was, right?
It was a gay porno guy, right, or something?
Yeah, it was a gay. I think it's a gay magazine. It might still be around. Out on the West Coast, San Francisco. The name of the magazine was Beefcake, and in that world, I guess, oh, you brute! He's a brute. So Brutus Beefcakes. And there's no name in the WWE that they give to someone that doesn't have some kind of a side meaning to it, whether it be the narcissist or the Prince Albert, with the piercings of the body. And the Prince Albert is a piercing of a special part of the body that is different from the ones this guy A-Train. He's a good kid. I hope he didn't pierce himself there.
What are your thoughts on Arn and Flair as people and workers?
Arn was very, very good. I give seminars to young wrestling students, and just a few days ago I had one, and I told the students if they want to see how a really good heel tag team works, watch Arn Anderson, Tully Blanchard. They were probably one of the top heel tag teams for their era. Fantastic, the way they did stuff and the bumps they took and the way that they excited the crowd and fed the babyface for the comeback and took the bumps, and I mentioned that, and I got no issues. Like I said, no issues with Arn. With Flair and his work, he's accomplished a lot of great things, and he is a show business person. The robes, the hair, the interviews. Great interviewer, can do a great interview, but he's redundant in his matches. That's all. But normally, I found this out. Most world champions would put a match together that worked for them, that they could do no matter where they went. The one that I saw that I thought could adapt to anyone was Harley Race. Harley Race didn't put his match together and say, here's how we'll do it, and this, and this. Harley Race would actually go out and wrestle a different match every night according to the guy he was wrestling. Where some of the other world's champions, they just had a token match. They went out and did the same thing night after night because they were traveling from city to city where the television didn't bleed over and you didn't know that he took that same flip over bump every night. Somewhere, Rick, you haven't understood that you've taken that same